What's up, numbers? Welcome to another episode of HyperCast here on Hyper Rabbit Power Go, episode 5. Very excited to be back again, talking about some fun stuff. Yes, we are 5 weeks into this.
And then we're 2 episodes away from 007.
That's right.
I got really excited about that this morning.
Really? Like that was a whole thought process?
Yes.
Cool.
Oh, because I numbered it, yeah. Because
Yeah.
Did you watch the Super Bowl trailer?
Yeah, we watched it last night. It's great. It's great.
Oh, there's a new one?
Yeah, they did a really
It's
perfect
not
job, just
much
like
more.
perfectly, like 30 seconds of just this is all you need, and that's all we're going
There's
to
a
give you.
little tease.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
nice.
There's some really good stuff. That's true. I forgot I padded these podcast numbers by 3, because eventually we'll get to 99.
I see now. I just opened the Slack for the first time.
But there's no way we're
Sick.
getting to 999.
I have
my
like
God.
5 questions
Be careful
that
with
I've
your
I'll be
shoulder.
dead
messaged
by then.
to Zach that Zach has never responded to. Slack just doesn't work with Zach.
Well, I'm usually sitting right next to you, so it's like, hi.
I like Slack.
Zach,
I like Slack more than Discord. I've said this many times.
I do too.
Me too.
I think.
Get with the program, Zach.
Me and my gaming buddies have a Slack together.
That's who should sponsor us.
Slack.
Hey.
Oh man, I'd love that.
But you also don't like things like Asana.
So, we all know that I'm kind of dumb, right? Like, we all know.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, you said it, not me.
We all know that I'm kind of stupid. Like, when it comes to...
I didn't say that.
But we know this is true. Like, I have a learning disability, and I am an extremely good visual learner. But when it comes to typing things up,
That's why I
entering
feel like
things,
Asana would be perfect
Asana
for
with
you.
the board view, and
Yeah.
you can even click and drag
Right,
it.
you say all this. Maybe it's easy for me to look at, but actually going in, organizing it, typing it all out, creating those projects and putting them together is very difficult.
But I did the kindergarten version of this just for you, Zach, where we have color-coded magnets upstairs.
Yeah.
And you haven't moved your magnets.
I move the magnets. Just not every day, but I move them.
You're supposed. That's the point of the magnets. You move
I
them
move 'em.
so
go
I
up there
know
and I
that
look
you're in
at
the
it and
middle
I
of
go,
working
oh,
things.
yeah, okay. You know.
I gotta make a to-do list like every day or night. Like if I don't start my day with a to-do list or end my night with a to-do list for the next day, then I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing today.
Yeah.
I actually do that. I do that on my computer.
It doesn't matter where I put it. Like I've
It just
used
has to
so many
exist.
different, like Asana. I used a lot
use the
of
notes
My
app on my
favorite
phone.
thing to do is just make a Google Calendar
Yeah.
and like use it as a to-do list because then I'll get notifications of like this is your next thing.
Are you a block scheduler?
I try to
Or do
be,
you just
but
like make a list of stuff?
I'll just make a list.
So
yeah.
mine-
I'll try to be like, here's what I'm gonna do first, second. But
Mine's more like that.
I
just
have a bullet journal.
yeah.
I have a bullet journal.
Yeah, and I'll do that too. Like my notes, my Samsung Notes now is just me with a ton of to-do lists
Yeah.
every day.
I've tried to do
But-
like blocking, so it's like from this time to this time I do this time to this time I do this.
Yeah,
but
I try to, but
I'd
like
say
I
about
never really
I'd
stick
say
to
about
it.
25% of the time that works out.
Yeah,
Right.
I do lists, but in priority order. So at least
Yeah.
the most important things get focused on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like we could do an entire episode of just like how each of us organize
yeah.
differently.
Yeah.
Oh,
Totally.
yeah, and people will be like, Zach's stupid. My organization is, these are all the things I have to do.
I think it's really important, though, as a team grows, which is something that we want to do. I've worked on teams with like 50 people, 100 people
Yeah.
before, and it's like so important.
Yeah.
Because if you got run over by a bus, you can show your boss how you're replaceable.
great.
I'll say I am good at responding to emails and messengers. Like if someone texts me and or hits me up on one of the messenger services that we use, which is why Slack's also very difficult for me because I communicate with the community every single day on Discord, and it's so many people. And I get DMs all day long from about 20 different people a day on Discord. I have my Twitter open, so I get a ton of messages on Twitter that I respond to.
Yeah, Twitter DMs and at tweets.
Right.
Yeah.
We have Facebook Messenger, which I use to communicate with each cast. So I have like a message group for each cast, and I'm communicating with everyone that way. So you guys, I know, talk a lot more on Slack, and I spend a lot of my time on the phone talking directly to the community through, especially Discord. I'm on Discord a lot talking to them.
I think
and it's
why we like
lot.
Slack is it facilitates a lot of work-related conversations where Discord is extremely hard to search.
Oh, yeah.
And to filter.
Oh, yeah.
And to star and
Well,
to
we're using it for different
prioritize.
reasons.
Yeah.
I mean, I
You
think
know?
Discord for a community-based communication platform is
Makes
kind
sense.
of perfect.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I actually disagree. I think Facebook groups, I know everybody hates Facebook. I know you're going to talk
Yeah.
about that
Hate
later. But I think Facebook group facilitate conversation because oftentimes when I jump into Discord to connect with the community, it's hard for me to follow up with a conversation because it's a real-time conversation.
Right. As opposed to Facebook has
the downside to Facebook, among many others, is that it's tied to your profile.
Yeah.
So it's like not anonymous. But Discord is like, I can be, Billy Baker.
Which is good and bad.
The fact that we've been able to facilitate entire fake. We have a Discord room right now that is around 400 people organizing chili cook-offs. You know what I mean? Like in a fake world. I think that's fascinating. Yeah. And it's really cool. And I love getting up in the morning and like reading through everything everyone's talking about. But I also think like with each of us spending so much time on these different platforms, I know that that's part of the reason I'm bad at Slack because I get taxed. I get like overwhelmed after I get done looking through all the Discord, looking through all the Twitter, catching up on the Facebook messages and communicating with everyone that way. And then I see this like hovering Slack thing that's like 20 notifications. And I'm like, ugh.
Well, you have to, that's it. You got to personalize your Slack to just be like, for you.
Yeah.
So that's why I at people. So if it's not important, I won't at you, and it's like you'll find out about it eventually. But if I need to know what your bagel order is now,
I tag you.
Lucas and Adam, they responded.
Yeah.
See, I use text message.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it depends on who I'm communicating with. If it's with Augustine and Hector, we have a Facebook message group, and it's just for hyperhero stuff. That's all we talk about. If it's with this team, it's just Slack. I don't use social media private messaging with like fans or other creators. I'll usually use email or text. I'm not a DM type of person.
Sure.
I respond to them sometimes, but email or text messaging.
I have found zero success communicating with talent through email.
Yeah.
It only works on Twitter DMs.
Right. And it's really actually, this is just making me exhausted talking about it because
they never respond to our emails.
like switching modes is exhausting. The more you switch, the less productive you become. So if you're switching from different platforms that have just different ways you input text, input information, it's just like your brain is going like this all day. And, in a traditional business, you open up your emails and your work is your email and your to-do list is almost your emails. And a lot of people operate their life and their work through just email. And there are ways to use like Asana to send you an email when you finish a task. You can manage everything through email. But I went through our hello@hyperrpg.com, always welcome to use it, the other day. And I just either sorted, trashed, archived, or labeled 500 emails. Like that's how behind we were. A lot of them are like 80% like I don't care that much about this limited edition collectible, that kind of thing. But then other times it's like, fans reaching out with just love or help. And it can be anything from, do you have professional advice to when am I going to get my t-shirt?
Sure.
Do you know how many emails I get from people asking me to help them start their channel?
I've been getting those too now.
I get a lot. I get a lot of private DMs and emails to the Hello account. That's like, hey, Zach, I'm a new person starting a new company, basically following your exact business model. Would you tell me how you did it?
Oh, that's actually a good idea, though, because I think there's a good idea there. Because I used to, as a game developer, people come up to me all the time and say, I love video games, or my son loves video games, or my daughter loves video games. How do you get into the games industry? So I wrote 2 blog posts, and I just link them that.
Yeah.
FAQ of my life.
Well, you can start by giving me your credit card. What's that 3-digit code on the back?
Zip code, please. Thank you.
I'll order you all the equipment you need to get started. Don't you worry about it.
How many emails would you guys say you average per day that you receive?
It feels like 100.
Yeah, it's probably close to 100.
I have 127 unread emails right now, and I had to flip my phone and just ignore it.
I'm at like 15 or 20.
I tried it. I'm not one of those people who stockpiles notifications. I know a lot of people love to have like 45 unread texts, 2,000 emails, and I'm like, that shit would probably give me a heart attack.
I have 2,700 unread emails.
Yeah,
I try to keep up. I try to keep
Yeah.
up. I do try really hard to keep up with my emails, and I mark them if they're really important. But on average, it's close to 100 a day. I would say half of those are from press release companies.
Yeah, that's most of mine.
telling us, like this game's coming out,
this is coming out,
all these kinds of things. We get a lot of, account management type stuff of like, your bill's coming up for this or, all that kind of stuff, which is stuff that you can't really delete. You have to like store and keep.
Follow up on it.
Tax reasons. But
started this last week and I recommend it actually. Labeling in your Gmail, but color coding it.
Yeah.
And I even went as far as to like, if it's a paying job, I've color coded it green and I put dollar bills.
I mean, it makes sense.
Just so that it's like, oh, this is like a priority because money.
Is that like a automated filter that
You can teach it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it is pretty cool. You can teach it. I'm not gonna flash my email at people, but you can kind of see like you see the little colors.
Oh,
there.
I see. Yeah.
And then like that pink is for projects. Red is for urgent.
I mean, that's super smart because like a lot of times you get emails and it is like press stuff. And
the huge range of not important, a waste of my effing time, and like, oh my God, why didn't this person call me because it's so important? Yeah.
Then again, I found when it comes to press release, game related stuff, all like that, the
Sometimes
most important stuff.
But
Still, I say that because we missed an email that was important for one of them. We almost missed a flight opportunity.
It was a paid trip.
A paid trip and everything, and we were like, oh shit, we got to get on top of this. Yeah. But I still find a lot of that stuff through Twitter DMs, where it's kind of like keeping an eye on the community through Twitter and seeing what stuff people are currently looking for. It kind of blows my mind how much of my work happens on Twitter, and I hate using Twitter. And it's just like how with Facebook, I use it only for messenger groups to communicate with all the shows. And then on Twitter, I almost hardly ever post. And if I do, it's just going to be a promotion for Kolak. That's pretty much it. I try to keep my personality off the platform. But almost my DMs are just, I get so many a day.
So are they open or are they just open to people who follow you?
Open to people
or you follow,
but I also check my message requests every day. So it does filter those, but I do check them every day. Same with Facebook, because I've realized I've missed important things in the past. So anyone can message me. But
you know what's going to give you like a small heart attack right now? Some of your fans reaching out through our Instagram messages.
I never check that.
Yeah.
I never check that.
I think I would check that the most out of all.
I have my Instagram DM set to like no notifications, so I check them about once a month.
I've never checked my messages on Instagram.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you could send private messages.
It now has, and now it filters between like primary and general.
Yep.
So.
But like Twitter DMs is really frustrating because it doesn't have the management that like Gmail has. So like I can't color code a priority DM. Yeah, it's horrible.
No,
you can't even like delete them all.
I mean, it makes sense when you think about who we work with, though. Like, and I want to kind of rephrase my comment. Not all the talent we work with doesn't get a hold of an email. I found it's people who work in different formats.
Yeah.
Twitch streamers we work with, YouTubers, talent. Social media is the best place for me to find them because that's what they're on the most. They're going to get those notifications. Voiceover talent, I can get on email.
Yeah.
Most of the voiceover actors we work with, when I email them, I get a response.
To that because that's probably their people. Yeah, like that's probably the main way they communicate.
I also find that people who are more like news correspondent kind of talent, they're better with email because like they need to operate through email. And then also any talent that has an assistant is much better on email.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
True. We just went like 20 minutes talking about color coding and emails. But it is interesting to see how like every single person, even just at this table, uses all those things differently because like, you use social media a lot to communicate with people.
I mean, when I look at my messages here, like that's a talent negotiation. That is in Twitter DMs, organizing a gear rental through Twitter DMs. This is with one of our investors. This is with a dice company wanting to sponsor us. This is with a game company wanting to sponsor a trip. Here's with our artist. Here's another person doing community outreach. Here was someone wanting us to help with Australia organization and stuff like that. Show work, art, show. We'll ignore that one. Work, Or not a single one of these is personal.
Yeah.
Mine are just Emily
well,
sending me
Yeah, like
sending me
every
tweets.
single one of these is a different business-related thing, but all on Twitter, which is really weird.
Interesting. What about LinkedIn?
Oh, I checked my LinkedIn.
What about like the Hyper one?
I check they're connected.
Oh,
so
I
I
see.
get Yeah,
For
it's kind of
both.
like Facebook, where you have to be a human to manage a page.
Are they owned by Facebook?
No, I hope not.
Are they owned? They're owned by someone, I
Fucking
thought.
probably.
No, aren't they owned by themselves?
Oh, maybe they are. I don't know.
Yeah.
I need to do more research into LinkedIn. Anyway, that was a lot of fun.
That'll be our next episode.
I mean, that'd be kind of a fun episode to see like how everyone breaks stuff down. It's interesting.
We definitely all have different work habits.
Yeah.
And all have pluses and minuses.
I also have been trying to enforce mine on the whole team, so.
And it's rough. I feel for
Microsoft
you.
owns LinkedIn.
Oh, Microsoft. That's who it was. Yeah,
there
yeah,
it is.
yeah. What are we doing this week? What's coming up? Anything good? Anything new? Something fun? Something
this
exciting?
comes out like a week later, so I've been trying to reframe that. So by the time you're watching this video, you should check out our finale of D&DW with special guest Freddie Prinze Jr.
He'll be here tonight.
Yes, he'll be shooting it tonight, but by the time this video comes out, that's the video you
Or
should check
podcast.
out.
Yeah.
You should also check out the 4-part Witcher RPG that will be all there in one giant plop.
You're welcome. We dropped them all at once.
Yeah, it's like Netflix.
Yeah.
Now you can binge.
That's right.
You're welcome.
And just like Netflix, it's about 12 hours of content.
That's right. You're welcome.
And I don't know if I can disclose the details, but we will be maybe when this video / podcast comes out, we will be live streaming an event for Funimation.
Are we allowed to talk about that?
I don't know. They signed the contract.
Oh, they did sign the contract?
Or I edited it this morning for their
Okay.
attorney.
Worst case scenario, I'm just going to cut this out.
We don't have to tell you what we're doing.
Just do like beep and like put the censor over my mouth.
Have they signed the contract? Well, I sent it to them this morning.
we work for Funimation all the time.
I am trusting that in a week all this will be resolved because it has to be.
It has to be.
It has to be.
Either the job happened or it didn't.
Yeah.
Godspeed.
If it didn't, then this will be a really sad, reflective moment because it's a big gig.
Remember how we didn't get that?
Oh my God.
Remember how a
Also-
majority of February's income was coming from one job.
And also Zach is preparing a midsummer
Oh shit, that's coming up.
RPG.
Cool.
Either Tuesday or Wednesday.
There's a couple things too. I mean, there's the Altered Carbon show
Yeah.
that you'll be able to check out. We did a collaboration
with the Altered Carbon RPG now on
Kickstarter, yeah.
Kickstarter RPG. And I don't know, is this show a good place to talk about some of the controversy surrounding that? Because I've
Well,
been
now
noticing.
that you use the word, I can't say no. I have to address these things as CEO.
Well, anyway, what I was saying is I've been noticing a lot in the comments on this video that people are saying it gives them an old Honesty Hour vibe, where we're getting to talk about some deeper subjects.
Is that
and
why you put the fireplace on in the background?
I was like, you know what? Let's lean into it. Sure, why not? Let's get real, y'all. Let's get real.
Yeah, so the Altered Carbon RPG, it's been a very interesting project to work on. And some people may know that the original writer for the book, I think it's just one book, has some very problematic
Tweets.
viewpoints
he
and blog
tweets?
posts.
Well,
and
his
blog
Twitter
po-
was his
y-
Twitter
yes.
was
His Twitter,
Oh.
Yeah.
tweets, and then Twitter banned him.
Yeah, I saw that a couple weeks
Yeah,
ago.
and then I wanted to like make my own judgment, so I Googled it and I found that he had blog posts on his personal website about being banned from Twitter and his personal viewpoints, and they're extremely problematic. And it is something that HyperRPG as a company and I myself as an individual am very against. And
I can say
basically-
it. Fuck that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so
Fuck that guy.
Well, basically, he is a transgender exclusionist radical feminist, which you may have seen that acronym TERF, TERF, around on the internet. And basically, he only recognizes gender as a binary, man or woman, which kind of excludes a lot of people, in the middle there. And he was like, oh, this isn't just my opinion, science.
And a lot
like,
of this
educate yourself.
originally came to light because of the Harry Potter shit and what that author was doing publicly on Twitter and coming out to. it's just been a real shitstorm of these authors of properties that you may love being asshats. And I think this is always something, you and I have talked about this a lot. When we first started dating,
and you told the internet about it on Honesty Hour.
That's not what I was gonna. That's not where this conversation was leading at all. There's a Malika swerve. We talked a lot about the artists that we like because we're both art school kids.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I at the time was having a really hard time coming to terms with the fact that a lot of the art that we're raised on, especially in art school, that is supposed to be the standard of what's great, the more you learn about it, the more you learn that the people that made it are the worst fucking people. They're the fucking worst. And they've done a lot of terrible shit. And this is not all artists. I don't want to throw all artists under a bus here. But there's a lot of artists that we celebrate who are awful. And it's this like battle that we will constantly be having within culture. The more we become cultured and we grow, at what point do we leave that art behind? Or do we say the art is now ours and the person who made it is left behind? And the art can mean, because art is supposed to be owned by the people who interpret it, right? So our interpretation of that message changes over time as well. And a lot of artists know this. Really good artists know that the message of your art changes depending on how it's presented, interpreted, who looks at it, how they look at it, the fucking sounds and sights of the way that you present it. Time is huge in regards to art.
So in art history, why did I go to college for this? So there's these two like really famous art history critic type people. There was Clement Greenberg and Harold Rosenberg. So Greenberg and Harold. Rosenberg. Yeah, those two would fight a lot because Greenberg, I think it was Greenberg, maybe I flipped it. Greenberg was the one who said you cannot examine art without the creator. You have to know the creator's story, their biography, to understand like why they made it.
This is such a contested issue.
Right, it's a huge contested issue.
We argued about in art school all the time.
Yes, but it's the Greenberg versus Rosenberg argument. I got a minor in art history. This is the one thing I remember. And then Rosenberg, because it matters a lot to me as an artist. And then Rosenberg was like, it doesn't matter whether or not that artist was an alcoholic or they grew up in a poor country. That doesn't matter. Just look at art for art's sake. And I can kind of understand like where they're both coming from.
Yeah, I mean, it's a nuanced discussion that like sometimes it does matter who the creator is. Sometimes it doesn't. Whenever the creator, an anonymous creator can create something really powerful.
And there's actually a really fantastic YouTube video about this too by a contemporary kind of art critic who is a character on YouTube. I forgot his name. I'll look it up. Where he had a painting of a flower, and it was like if a white man painted it, it's just a painting of a flower. But if it's a black painter who painted it, it's got to be like the flower of Amistad.
Or a black gay man.
Or if a female painted that flower, it's suddenly a vagina.
I mean, this was a huge contestant in the 80s, especially when there was a lot of this like. With the AIDS epidemic.
His name's Hennessy Youngman, by the way. If you're an art history nerd, you should look it up.
And there was just so much like, who was the artist? Who was the person putting the art forward became just as important as the art. And in some ways it was always that way. And I think a lot of people forget that the reason you have so many paintings that you see and you remember, like most of those people were coming from a place of privilege and celebrity already to have been fortunate enough to have their work put in a fucking cathedral or museum to be remembered forever. But a lot of those people are really shitty and have really problematic views. So when it comes to something like this, where it's like the story of Altered Carbon, this idea, and this happens with so much cyberpunk,
right.
Which is funny because I know the game is getting a lot of shit, but the original creator of cyberpunk, the original book, the original RPG is extremely liberal and extremely like open-minded. And the fact that there's so many of these cyberpunk properties that come out and then you find out the people that made them, it's just like, what? This is not punk, for one. Punk is fuck everything, anti-establishment. And two, like this, you created a story in Altered Carbon where anyone can be anyone. You can take the best parts of something. And I understand that
it's called being re-sleeved.
Yeah, like the artist or the writer may have intentionally meant for it to be like transracial, and this idea that you can overcome race, and and then just decides later like, oh, I didn't want that to be sexual. That's different.
Yeah,
and
gender is
fuck
different.
You created a world where people can choose to be anything they want if they're privileged enough to do so, and things like that. So it's like there's a big cool discussion that can happen around that art piece that I think is important for today's day and age. So at what point do you separate the artist and
From the
make
art.
your own stories around it? And I think a lot of this issue can also come from the fact that the artist is still alive, still out there making their fucking bullshit hot takes on social media.
Blog post was January 20th, 2020, this year. So I was like, oh, this is not, H.P. Lovecraft died a long time ago.
Yeah.
This is someone who's very active still.
Yeah, I think another
and
thing
has doubled down
to be
on their opinion.
Yeah.
very I don't want to I'm not defending anyone, but I feel like sometimes we're trying to create stuff within someone else's world, independent creators, and we're trying to make money and get by.
Yeah.
And they've been working on this Kickstarter for so long.
Right.
Are you gonna let this guy's tweets ruin this huge project that they've put so much time and money into? They've got their own creative RPG book that's
There's
gonna
also
be really cool.
the person who made the book. I looked all over that Kickstarter. His name is nowhere on it.
Yeah.
No.
His name is nowhere on the Kickstarter.
original.
Oh yeah, they made
Yeah,
their own
right.
RPG
Yeah.
about it.
Right.
Licensing happens all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And the
And-
licensing probably went through, I cannot speak on this, so do not quote me and at me. But it's probably through the same kind of venue that the media, the TV show went
Right.
through.
Yeah,
That
we've
kind
been
of-
to these. We've been to licensing buyouts before. Lots of
Yeah.
times when people have a property, they'll hand it off to someone and they'll take it to a big media conference and be like, "We
Yeah.
have these
You deal
licenses
with
for
it.
Yeah.
sale.
Oh.
Who wants to buy them?"
We did go to some of those.
Yeah, and they're fun.
They're interesting.
It's a wild.
That's
'cause you just
another
have people just
episode.
"Here's my ideas.
Yeah.
Who wants to buy them?"
Yeah. It's like going to a film festival, but way more crazy, I feel like.
In a way, because
It's interesting.
Yeah.
It's very
Another
interesting.
another topic.
Because
for
the ones
another
we went to
episode.
were usually it was the Asian networks selling properties from Asia to American
Gotcha.
audiences and
like
saying,
this
"Who
is
wants
a
to buy what?"
famous novel in Japan. Do you want to make it a Hollywood TV show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is I know that stuff's very removed, but that's that's an insider perspective. To the outside world, that doesn't fucking matter.
No,
Yeah.
it
They see
doesn't.
the same name of the story. They attach their own rightfully hurt feelings. The
Yeah.
stuff this guy has said,
No.
he's being
It's-
very aggressive.
It's very messed up.
He's being very aggressive, and he's choosing to make a fight out of
and
this.
it's stupid.
Yeah.
Just his arguments are stupid. I'm gonna say that right now.
Yeah.
So it is, I want people to know that this is not something we did lightly. We have been communicating constantly. In this instance, we get hired as a production company. We're not necessarily GMing or anything. We get hired as a production company. Someone wants to rent our studio and put on a show.
Well,
But we are coming to the table with concerns and talking to people and being
Yeah.
these are real things. This is happening. Everyone involved in the project has their heart in the right place. And it's just at what point do you try to reclaim that art for yourself?
Well, I can actually say this because I had a meeting about it. I actually had a couple meetings about it. And I said, I'm very excited about the project, and I'm excited about the opportunity to reclaim these ideas, not the problematic ones, the ones that you can re-sleeve yourself, things like that, to reclaim these ideas and this world in a space that is more inclusive so that we can all play together and explore these kind of social issues.
I think I hope I'm not interrupting. I think for the most part, from what I've seen, people are they understand how progressive this show has been for them and how much they care about the story. It seems like the Kickstarter is doing really well.
Yeah.
It is.
They
It's at
already-
110,000 of their $20,000 goal.
Yeah.
So I think for the most part, people are that's fucked up that guy said that shit, but I don't want to connect it to this
Right.
cool RPG that I want to play.
Right.
Yeah, but that being said, a lot of people who support RPGs on Kickstarter are not possibly the people who are going to be upset by
Right.
this,
Yeah.
Sure.
and that's a different audience.
I will say, also within our own community though,
Yeah.
on Twitter and stuff, I've seen people that I know and I know that have sort of the same ideals that I do, being this is a cool RPG,
Yeah.
worked on by cool people, check it out.
Right.
So
And then also,
yeah, on both sides, also some people that are supporting this might be I like what he said, so.
And I just encourage people to do your own research and information. I heard a
Yeah.
lot of stuff, but I went to that author's blog and I'm like, I want to know exactly what he said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, you're dumb. You're not only are you cruel, but also just your arguments are stupid.
Yeah. Just an idiot.
But I think the TV show did some really cool stuff for diversity. I think if you look at the contributing writers to the RPG, you have a lot of really diverse people, not only racially diverse, but also people of different gender identities, which I think is really, really cool. And all the leadership on that RPG are, you know, really great allies. So I'm hoping that we can work through this. And like, in my opinion, it's like the biggest FU to like take somebody's world and be like, yeah, but you know, you kind of have like shitty views, so we're going to make it better.
Oh.
Right?
I love it when people do that. Mm-hmm. And to some extent, like, people have been doing that with Lovecraft for a while now.
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, fuck you, but Cthulhu's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think even like we talked about, Hector and I talked about James Bond yesterday, you know, something that was created in a very specific time. Those views and that lifestyle and just that world doesn't exist 60 years later.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it's how do you take something that is beloved by people and continue to modernize it and update it? I mean, you look at James Bond just from 2006 to 2020. In 14 years, like, the world has changed drastically.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, like, how do you adapt that world into our world while still keeping kind of the essence of the character? And there's always a way to do it.
Yeah.
And people on the internet will tell you that, no, you should just leave it how it is. But, like,
You have to.
You have to
fucking
adapt
have
it.
to.
Otherwise, you're not going to get people to come out and watch these
You
movies.
get left behind.
You get left behind. And that's how franchises and properties die.
Most of you watching this are probably like-minded allies because we make our viewpoints pretty well known. But if you're an asshat and you're watching this, you're dwindling. Your audience, you, are dwindling and getting smaller and less important. So, unfortunately for you, people will stop making stories for you because they can't survive doing so, which is a great thing for the rest of us who are ready for new stories to be told. Sorry, it's not profitable anymore. Fucking shit.
I mean,
Finally.
That being said, you know, like I said, I feel like his arguments were stupid. You know, try to take some empathy to your life if you kind of, you know, don't understand why some of these things are problematic. And, like, you know, read great articles and books that are written by like transgender authors or like different creators of color and that kind of thing. And like, make your own opinions. Make your own opinions. Do your research, read a book, and make your own opinions. And honestly, I think you'll probably understand where we're coming from because we're coming from a place of trying to empathize and understand other people's struggle.
And I can say we learn every day. Our community keeps us in check. As much as sometimes it can be like we're constantly getting like flooded.
I mean, and I would say community even includes people we work with.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and we're always learning and we're always growing, and we have to. You have to. Mm-hmm. It's the world. It's changing around you. Grow up.
Yeah, sometimes it feels like the world is at a standstill, but when you look at it, you're like, no, it's
not.
always moving forward.
No, it's not.
Always.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's part of why we have a lot of butting head turmoil right now is, you know, as things move forward, they're going to hit roadblocks that they have to overcome.
Yeah, agreed. Malika, do you want to talk about this other RPG that you wrote down on here that I don't want to spoil?
Oh,
if you want to
yeah.
talk about it?
I guess it's cat's out of the bag because I mentioned it on another video we recorded yesterday.
Yet, but
I'm going to be doing a Mulan RPG in March.
Yeah, how the hell are we doing that? Because you have some lofty goals that I think are really cool, but how are we doing that?
Well, if you're allowed to have lofty goals, I feel like I'm allowed to have lofty goals.
No, I get it.
Right?
I get it.
I'm an artist too, Zach.
How are we doing it?
I don't know, and I'm running out of time.
What? Oh no.
Have you seen what she wants to do?
No. You've seen it.
It's super ambitious, but really cool, but super ambitious.
Hey man,
it's
shoot
really
for the
cool
moons. If you miss, you'll land amongst the stars.
It would be
right?
a very unique looking
Stars
RPG.
are way far out there.
Saying for you right now, we need to find someone who has an entire green screen studio that we can do some live keying on for a full 3.5 hour.
Can we just ask our neighbors over there?
Yeah, we have some neighbors.
Yeah.
You know these neighbors?
Over here?
These ones?
Are they green screen?
These?
It's white.
There's
It's
a
white.
green screen over here
that's true,
by the
there is.
valet.
And
They
then we
studio.
we run our internet connection from here to over there.
That's actually really easy. We could just.
Okay. All
They
right.
do have a white cyc right here.
All
They
right.
do.
This is like borrow a cup of sugar 2.0.
If I walk in there, I'm like, hi.
Hello.
Hello. Hello.
The shirt you're wearing, I just
Hello.
about said
yes,
it out loud.
That's what I'm talking about.
We can pay you in magic starter packs.
Did I tell you that I talked to one of them over there?
No.
I did. One of the main producers.
Is he the Australian one? I talked to the Australian guy.
I talked to him. Yeah, he's a talker.
Really nice.
Yeah.
I won't say it on the podcast. I'll keep it to myself.
Are we going to dox ourselves? Let's not dox
It's
ourselves.
not just that. We are very fortunate to live next to some people that we admire a lot.
We live in a
we're
creative
trying really
community.
hard.
Yeah.
We're trying really hard not to nerd out about it all the time.
Yeah.
But sometimes we look out our window and we're like, oh, cool. Oh, cool.
You know,
oh, cool.
I'm a fan.
I bet they're doing the same thing with us. Like, oh, fuck, is that Hyper RPG over there?
Is that famous dog we keep seeing on the stream?
Is that Adam Blvd?
Meanwhile, my blinds are completely
Hyper-Heroes?
closed.
Considering the first time I talked to them, they were like, so what's Twitch? I don't know if that's the case.
Oh,
I'm really
well.
curious. It's really interesting. A lot of people are talking about esports right now.
I mean, maybe they saw Jack Black come into here. Something's happening.
Yeah, okay.
So funny.
But a Mulan RPG that's got a really ambitious. I hope we can pull it off because it would be really cool. But it's very ambitious.
Yeah, I'm
we
working
need
on
like
things.
costuming and.
Oh, okay. So we're already kind of screwed because it takes more than a month to get clothes from China. But
Anybody know anybody in the costume department on Mulan? Can we call Matt?
well, also like unfortunate because of the virus, and then also
right.
Chinese New Year.
Right.
A lot of shipments, even at the end of January, were slowed down. So I'm
Right.
trying to navigate around that.
Luckily, like down.
But luckily, we have a thriving Chinese cultural community in Los Angeles
Yeah.
that I'm hoping to tap into, including maybe some live score with traditional instruments.
Nice.
He's sweating.
I am because.
Gonna mic up some instruments, huh? Cool.
I told him that
I can't wait to show Lucas the video.
I told Zach. Well, I have one upstairs. I have a Chinese zither. It's called gutsang, and I did some research, and people online say it's one of the hardest instruments to mic up. And Zach said it would be easy. So I was like, okay. I put it into the plan.
It'll be easy because we're not having to mic it against any other instruments. Because I could see how in an orchestral setting it would be fucking hard.
Yeah.
But because it does have this, it resonates in a way I've never heard another instrument resonate, and that will be hard to capture
Yeah.
on mic. But as far as the tones coming
Yeah.
out of it, since everyone else is usually wearing mics that bleed out the background noise, we should be able to just boom mic it and do. I think we have 2 instrument mics, and we could boom mic it. We'll put one next to the chords, one a little bit higher up. Piece of cake.
It also has a percussive quality to the nails kind of hitting the strings, too.
Yeah, it's a really cool instrument that sounds really cool, and I think it'd be really great to have on a live stream.
So, Zach, what's your topic?
Well, I wanted to talk about today overworking. No. I want to talk about theory versus practice.
Oh, wow. We're doing a little one of these.
Well, it's just, okay, so
Welcome to our art history lecture.
not so much that, just, so I've recently taxed Lucas with helping me co-write Kolak.
He was like, what?
Wait,
Lucas is a good writer, and I think, especially like we've worked together in the past, like I'm an idea person, but I'm not a writer, and I think I need help. And a lot of that is, now that we've been doing Kolak for a year, putting on a live show every week that we're always trying to push boundaries on and surprise people and up the ante, it's proving to be more and more difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was sitting there yesterday, and we've done a couple things in the last 2 weeks to kind of like really think about like how do we keep surprising people. And maybe sometimes it doesn't need to be these big over thought out ideas, and sometimes it could just be presentation format and putting things a little bit on their head. Because if you're watching one of these every week for 3 hours, you have a certain level of expectation of what you're going to get, and we flip one of those things and change it. It gives them a whole new experience. And the more I think about it, the more I realize that I need to kind of go back to these old art school ideas of like, well, theory versus practice. And right now we are all practice. Very little theory.
I don't think that's true.
As a person just setting up a live stream every day and go, 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 I often find myself in the practice mode where it's just like we're just doing. We're just going to keep going, and constantly feeling overwhelmed and feeling like push, push, push. And then every Sunday right before Kolak, I'm like, what the fuck are we doing? And I have a fucking anxiety attack every Sunday. Like, how are we doing that? How are we going to keep up in the ante? And I realized I think I need to kind of pull back a little and get back into the theory mindset of how and why. And what are some things other people have done to overcome these issues and problems? Creative problem solving, and just getting back to that influence and inspiration from the why instead of just influence and inspiration from the practice. For instance, the difference between me getting super jazzed up by rewatching Haunting of Hill House, watching Twin Peaks again for the 4th or 5th time, which is kind of enjoying the act, the product. And now thinking, you know what, maybe it'll be more beneficial to me to spend some time going into the why. Not the result, but the how and the why and what problems that they have to overcome to get there to help me get through my own kind of, I wouldn't call it a creative block as much as a, like we're not at the block stage yet, just a creative problem. A hurdle of keeping this engaging and entertaining and upping the ante every single week and feeling very overwhelmed by that. So I had a couple books I pulled out of my old trove of when I was a freelancer to try to re-inspire myself to get to other creators and the problems they've had to overcome to reach their goals. So I pulled out a couple I wanted to share with you guys. One is called Getting Away With It from Steven Soderbergh. The subtitle, or The Furthest Adventures of the Luckiest Bastard You Ever Saw. And it says, also starring Richard Lester as the man who knew more than he was asked.
The cover is fun. The back cover is fun, too.
I just did a podcast with Hector and Keller, their 500 Greatest Films thing, and I really enjoyed doing it. And it made me realize I missed thinking about and talking about the why and the how. Because it does help me. It helps me when I start thinking about those things to see like, oh, I'm dealing with a lot of these same issues. I'm dealing with these same problems. What emotion am I trying to evoke? And what tools do I have at my disposal to evoke those certain emotions, to pull myself out of the practice of just go, go, go? And we started talking about what film I was going to do next year for them. And they started going through the list and everything. I was like, oh, I'd love to do Out of Sight because I think Soderbergh doesn't get talked enough as a filmmaker and how unique that he really is. He's his own cinematographer.
Editor a lot of the time.
Yeah, and he always does like one big studio movie, one I want to do whatever the hell I want movie. And he kind of rides the system very well in that way, sometimes to very mediocre results. But you cannot ever like look at his career and be like, dude, this guy has not been hustling. He hustles. And there's a lot of really funny quips in here and a lot of, examples of this is how I overcame those hurdles. So that's one I'm going to dive back into. Another is one of my favorite books of all time. I had to buy this on eBay, and it was crazy expensive, and it was a book stolen from a library.
Oh, I see the library card.
Yep, it was in 1987 was the last date on here.
Jeez.
From the Jefferson Parish Library, Metairie, Louisiana. Yep.
That's crazy.
And it was still a couple $100 because it's really hard to find. It's called A Man with a Camera, Nestor Almendros.
I'll be stealing that from you.
You would love this book. It's just basically him going through every film that he made as a cinematographer and what problems he had to overcome.
That's
and
cool.
This man's considered one of the pioneers of the film noir cinematic style when it comes to lighting and cinematography. And it's a very no-nonsense, just like, this happened, this is how I overcame it, this is the problems that I faced, these are the locations we were in and how we made that work. The next one is Making Movies with Sidney Lumet.
Oh, that's a classic one.
It's a classic, great fucking book that, again, is just filled with great stuff. One that I almost brought down is a book of interviews of the Coen brothers that's really good. And it's just a collection of different interviews. So it's not really like a book where they're sharing their own insights, but their interviews are always really delightful. And the other one is literally called Theory and Practice.
Yeah.
And I will use 2% of what's in this book.
Yeah.
But it's good every once in a while to just remind myself, like, I don't know how many of you do this. I find myself doing this often. As I age, finding more connection to my old textbooks in a way of being like, I forgot so much of that stuff. Was there anything useful in there? And then you start looking right back through it and you're like, oh shit, this is actually really useful to some of my current problems. And this book is very much a beginning filmmaker's book. It breaks down exactly.
I think we did that book in college.
You probably did. A lot of colleges did. And it breaks down all the different types of operations for cinematography and all that kind of stuff. But there's a great section on story and why you frame shots a certain way, why you would do things with a certain color, which are all things I know, but are really great to every once in a while step back.
A nice little refresher.
Remind yourself so I can go into my projects with my full set of tools at the front of my mind instead of way in the back where I get overwhelmed with the practice of just we're doing this every week.
Yeah, I've been doing that a lot more recently because I've been trying to find ways of like how can we make our stuff look a little different because like I like the way our stuff looks, but you do want it to evolve, like, you know, whether it's a year later, 2 years later, 3 years later. And I've been doing a lot of that, like watching a lot of stuff on cinematography and color theory and all that stuff and seeing like now that's in the forefront of my mind, I can really sit there and think about what video are we making? What kind of look could you apply to it, or what angles can you use and what lenses and what like how do you light, you know, the set to look a certain way so it kind of helps tie into the video. So it all kind of feels like it's playing within the same kind of like playground.
Yeah.
I have been actually revisiting some of my old textbooks. It's a little harder for me because if I really love knowledge, I want to share it. And I forgot to mention, we also took 10 of my mentees to Disneyland.
Dude, that was so
last
cool.
week.
I don't like Disneyland, but that was really special.
Yeah, so we did a fundraiser for our channel, but also if we could have a little bit of time and money, I wanted to take my mentees to Disneyland. I've been mentoring them in the art of game design and interactive design and narrative design. And then I connected them to my mentor, who is now retired, but he was the vice president of interactive projects for Disney Imagineering, and giving them that level of insight while they're in it, you know, interacting with the things. And I also have revisited. There's a guy named Bruce Block, and he wrote a book called The Visual Story. I took his class, and he's famous for writing like scathing kind of like harsh comments in people's sketchbooks.
I've heard that class is also very intense.
Well,
I don't know how true that is, but
I can show you some of his, like what he wrote, and it's basically learning and studying all of these films, and then going out and shooting an example of every element of motion design, filmmaking, and like art. And it's crazy. And the best, if you do a good job, he'll say, it's fine.
so it's like working with Zach.
Yeah, it's exactly like working. You would love him, and he's a fantastic lecturer. He's like a legendary one of those like professors that is so smart but so good at explaining it. And yeah, I've been revisiting that, and then that is where I got the color book. I know Zach is like a certified color science like person, and that
I
has
don't
been
use
really
those
great.
tools almost at all anymore, which is
No.
sad.
It made me proud that I could like differentiate between like two shades of green that were really close, you know?
I mean, it's just like your brain's constantly evolving, and it's so hard to keep all the information you gather there and ready to be accessed. And, you know, I had a color science certification from Able City even for filmmaking, and I taught color theory at a college. And that stuff's so in the back of my brain right now that I could not pull a lot of that stuff forward if I was asked on demand.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, you'd have
because
to,
it's
like,
like other
revisit it.
shit has taken up that space.
Another book that like it's not a filmmaking book necessarily, but I think it's very entertaining and it's just sort of like insightful into different types of filmmakers. I really like Rebel Without a Crew by Robert Rodriguez,
Yeah, yes.
where he talks about the journey of how he made El Mariachi for $7,000 and how it's like very much about guerrilla filmmaking.
And hiding in the editing booth and peeing in a bottle.
Yeah, it
it's
was
intense.
I didn't really know what to expect from that book, and I was young when I read it, so I don't know how it would read now. I was like, I think I was in high school, like a freshman, so I don't know how it would read 15 to 20
I
years
feel
later.
like
But
what I got from that book is it felt a lot like a great book for dreaming.
Yeah.
You know, like I could do it too because this person did it.
I sold my body to science.
Well, yeah, he was a human guinea pig to fund his first movie, and I'm
Yeah.
like, oh my god.
The stuff that I really liked reading about was when he talked about how he made his early movies, putting two VHS players together and like being able to record the cuts together into one. That was a pretty fun thing to get like a little insight on, especially back then. It was more common to, you know, have that type of gear around. So you're like, oh, I could edit something if I don't have some advanced editing software, which back then Adobe Premiere was not necessarily easy to get.
Oh, no, not back then.
No.
Was it even out yet?
I think at that point, 2004, yeah, it was, but only for maybe like a year or two, but it was very expensive to buy. It was like $2,000 to own it.
Yeah, Final Cut was what everyone was using at
I have
the
a
time.
quick question. Of all these like textbooks that you guys had to read like in school or maybe in your own personal exploration, how many of them are written by women or people of color? I mean, that's a good example, Robert Rodriguez's book.
I would have to look. I don't remember off the
So
top of my head. I would say probably mostly men though.
Yeah.
I don't know. I was an art major.
Yeah.
So
But art school has more female writers, I feel.
it does.
Yeah. And
a
then
lot of art critics and stuff are female. I know one for sure because the class I took, we used her textbook for the
I was
class.
going to say several of our media classes were written by the female professor.
Yeah.
But I didn't have many textbooks, thankfully, because I would
They're
have not read them.
expensive.
A lot of the stuff I pick up
Yeah.
is
There's
just as
pictures
an
in there.
independent filmmaker when I first moved to LA and realizing I needed to fill my freelance time with knowledge.
I mean, it's the best thing you can do.
It's interesting. All my like game design, game history, and game theory books for game designers, I think all of them are written by women, which is like, wow, this is interesting.
That's cool.
Yeah. But to kind of tie it back, you're talking about all these books. You're talking about all these creators. You said the why. Well, why do you do what do you do here?
That's exactly why I'm reading these
Oh,
books.
so you're trying to answer that for
I'm trying
yourself.
to get the answer from someone
Got it.
else to figure it out for me.
And then
No, it's I want to tell stories.
Okay.
At the end of the day, I want to tell stories. It's not about for me necessarily like making people laugh or making people feel scared. It's more just I want to share stories, hear stories, grow from them, and put them back out into the world for others to hear, grow from, experience, talk about, be a conversation about. Like at the end of the day, I just want to tell stories.
Yeah.
And, the how and the why, I need to constantly be remembering of like, okay, well, what stories do I want to tell? What emotions do I want to invoke? What questions do I want asked? And what are the things that I can do to make that happen?
I also wanted to kind of tie in a question at the end here. We have a question from our very own Wesley Marshall. He works here. And it says, what are the things that drive you all creatively? That one thing, person, place, or thing that whenever you see it or hear it makes you just want to create. I feel like this actually ties back into what you're trying to answer for yourself.
Well, honestly, what I would say is I'm trying to, in a way, flip that because I've been in a very reactionary state of, reading Junji Ito comics to help get my mind in the right place before an episode of Kolok, throwing in an episode of Twin Peaks. I've been using a lot of media to, like, it kind of reminds me of taking a drink of coffee. I'm taking a shot of coffee of espresso to just give me a boost to push through. And what I need to be doing is creating a stronger and healthier foundation again. And I'm kind of relying a little bit too much on these short bursts of media to like fuel me and to give me that like, yeah, fuck yeah, art, this is so cool. And then I'm missing out on a lot of the underlying deeper questions. So, but as far as those things that always pump me up, it is stuff like Junji Ito and his art and his books, the Coen brothers, David Lynch, the show Atlanta. Anytime I throw on an episode of Atlanta, I feel overwhelmed with how fucking good it is. And so I use that show a lot to put on and just be like, oh, fuck, wow.
Yeah.
It gets me so pumped up creatively. The fucking balls of it, I think, of finding anything that finds a way to be like subversive and finding its own voice despite what conventional wisdom around that type of media would tell you. I think Atlanta's such a great example of that. Like one of my favorite fucking moments in Atlanta is a running bit about the the guy with the invisible car or whatever, the uncle with the invisible car and all this stuff. And then in the very last shot of the episode, you see a guy in the background driving like up in the air, and he's like, and it's a show that's set so deep in reality.
Yeah.
And I love it when it kind of pulls the rug out from under you with these like really surreal moments out of fucking nowhere.
Yeah.
To just kind of get you deeper into the overall questions of what you're seeing and hearing and how you should be looking at that world. And I find it masterful. But yeah, it always gets me pumped up.
It's a good question. I don't know. For me, I would have to say it's kind of like what a lot of times sometimes it's what's going on in the world. Sometimes it's what I'm consuming at that moment. I've talked about this before. I'm the type of person, if I'm watching something new, I can't be doing something else. I need to give something 100% of my attention. Otherwise, I'm not really ingesting everything that it's trying to tell me from a story level. Like, I think visually, you can kind of sit there and like get an idea visually, musically, but you also are missing out on a lot of stuff too, a lot of cues. But for me, it's usually like Watchmen was the perfect example of something that I watched and I didn't really know what to expect from it. And 4 episodes in, I mean, just even by the first episode, but watching 4 episodes like back to back to back to back, it really made all like the creative juices in my mind just go all like, it was like jump starting a car. Like everything in my head was just like, oh my God, I want to go shoot something so bad. Now I got to write something. I got to figure out a really interesting story. So a lot of times it's stuff like that. Watchmen, Parasite, The Lighthouse, a lot of these movies that come out that unfortunately not as many people see them as they should, but they do something on a level creatively and with visual cues and audio cues that it really just like sparks something. And a lot of times too, it could be a movie or a show or some sort of drawing or painting that like you would kind of look at and you think like, no, this doesn't really look like it would interest me. But then all of a sudden you experience it and it just connects with you somehow and something clicks with you and inspires an idea.
For me, it's travel. I like to
travel is also.
I get really like bogged down in the city, and like I could just go through the motions of like the day to day, try to make ends meet, go to work, get off, try to have like an hour or two.
Whoa! Keep that shit to yourself.
Gotta go home and get off. Keep the hour or two of actual personal time. Like I want to fill it with something that's not like work, so I try to do fun stuff. But like if I can get out and travel and like be alone, specifically like alone travel, gets my imagination going, and like being out in the woods and stuff gets me thinking about stories that I want to tell. So usually if I can get away from the city, I can like really get the creative juices flowing. That's it.
I think for me, since I've been really focused on like making interactive things in video games and stuff and analog games, my most favorite part of the process is at the end when the player is experiencing your game or your thing, and they don't even have to tell you that they're enjoying it. You can see it on their face. A lot of my amusement park friends, including myself, you do this thing where you're like the secret shopper and you just kind of like eat a hot dog on a bench, but you're watching people come off of your ride. Or for me, it was watching people finish playing their game. And like, if they're having a great time, that just connecting with their faces, I think it's just kind of like a comedian. Like you have to hear the laughter. For me, it's watching people's faces when they're consuming something I've made is amazing. And then to add on to that, if you've made a thing that's all ages or a thing that's appropriate for children, children don't hold back how they feel, and they get bored really, really easily. And I was at a festival where I was showing off one of my games because it was like it won an award, and I asked the kids, do you want to play again? And this little girl like jumped up and wanted to like high five me, and she said yes. And I was like, this is awesome, because like kids, they can be the worst critics. I don't care about somebody in a newspaper or online in an article. Children, they're gonna tell you if it sucks. And she was like, yes. And I was like, so for me, it's seeing the reactions on people's faces, whether it's extreme joy or happiness, or even holding somebody's attention long enough to make it feel like you're adding richness to their life. That's something I'm eternally grateful for as a creator. Yeah.
Yeah, kids are very honest.
Oh my gosh. Do you want to play again? It's really nerve-wracking because you're like twice as tall as them. And, but they're the judges.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's the next topic?
I think it's with Lucas.
I'll go. Ring Doorbell is giving Facebook and Google your user data, which is cool. I don't know if you know, Ring Doorbell is like the video doorbell of like who's at my door. We have one right next door to HyperRPG.
Yeah, it opens up every time I stand in front of the door. It looks at me and I'm like, hey, what's up?
Let me tell you what's going on with Ring Doorbell. Why this matters is that we walk into HyperRPG. Say that scenario right there. They're doing like facial recognition track. They're selling your face to Google and Facebook and a lot of other companies. So they're watching you walk into HyperRPG. They probably know that because of like location tracking and shit, or like somebody like buying the app. They probably have to register their address. I don't fucking know, but
they can get that from the IP address.
They can get that all from the IP address. So they're watching you walk into HyperRPG. They know that there's a comic book shop down the street. Now they can target ad you, which is just, I'm tired of that. I'm tired of being sold shit, and they're just tracking us everywhere.
That's literally what it says here. It says, I'm tired of being sold shit.
That was my one point. They're selling the Ring Doorbell, which is owned by Amazon, is selling to, they have identified 5 companies that are receiving information. Facebook via its Graph API, each user's time zone, device model, and screen resolution with a unique identifier. Branch, which describes itself as a deep linking platform, a number of unique identifiers, as well as each user's IP address, device model, and screen resolution. AppsFlyer, a big data company, a range of information including sensor data related to the magnetometer, whatever, gyroscope, and accelerometer on a user's phone. Mixpanel, the most information, including users' full names, email addresses, device information, and app settings, and then Google-owned Crashlytics, an amount of customer data yet to be determined, and everyone's pretty sure it's facial recognition.
Jesus Christ.
But regardless, like, this is not really a new thing. Anytime you're buying any sort of product that is like, by the way, would you like to link your account, or would you like all of this info to go to the cloud? Like, they're selling that data almost all the time. Like, that's why they link it. They're basically trying to figure out ways to advertise to you specifically. And this is always a problem that I have been pretty, like, central about of, like, they're just trying to make the best product for me. And, like, I want ads tailored. But, like, in the last, like, year, I've just gotten really tired of it. I am very against being advertised to. And I, for instance, on, like, Sunday at the Super Bowl, every time they would cut to commercials, I just get this like bleak, heart-sunk feeling of like, fuck, man, the football game's the commercial, dude. And like, oh man, I think that football game is actually the commercial. The real show is these ads, man. But no, honestly, like every time they cut to these commercials with all these big brands like fucking Tide and Bud Light working together, I'm like, oh my God, these are billion-dollar negotiations.
Planters.
And like, I'm out here like struggling to fucking make ends meet, and sometimes I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to eat ramen all week, and like these two companies are making out on camera, and then there's fucking the Planters nut thing, like. Companies aren't even making ads advertising the product anymore. They're just trying to do like brand loyalty. I have no idea what a Planter's nut is. If I woke up today, I'd be like, what's this baby nut thing?
Oh, it's you can thank fucking Baby Yoda for that. 100%.
It's disgusting. It's like mascot loyalty. It's like there's nowhere once in that commercial being like, this is a tasty, sweet, salty. Like they don't even talk about the flavor of the nuts or what they're selling.
Not the goal of advertising.
It's not.
It's not.
They're not.
They're getting you to talk it. You just brought up Planters peanuts on our fucking podcast.
Yes. It's
fuck you. It's working.
No, it's working hardcore. But I want you guys. I'm trying to like. I want to counteract it with some actionable things. Anytime you get a tailored ad, don't click on it. Like, let these companies know that it's not working.
And don't bring it up on your podcast that you have hundreds of people that watch.
Oh, hundreds? Really? Hundreds of people? Are you going to watch this? Fuck, dude. Share this with your friends.
I'm just, part.
I'm really tired of being tailored to. I found this article. I was on Reddit today just looking at, like, I wonder what I want to talk about. And, like, I searched the technology subreddit. I sorted by top of the week. And, like, 10 of the 20 top articles are companies getting in trouble for stealing your data, or like, this company wasn't telling you, but they were tracking your data. Like this cell phone carrier, the FCC is maybe going to crack down on them, but honestly, it's going to be a slap on the wrist probably. This is happening like weekly. We're finding out that people are just like tracking everything that you're doing. And I'm like bogged down by ads all the time. Like I can't even watch Instagram stories. The second story is an ad.
What kind of ads are you getting though?
Oh, they're exactly what I want. I'm like, oh, don't click on it. Don't let them know.
What is it, like camera equipment or something?
Yes, absolutely.
So much camera equipment is so...
Camera, travel.
This is another thing that, like, you get these things and we're like, why is it a fucking app? Like, this Edelkrone shit could be... like an infrared remote, and it would be 1,000 times more reliable, but it's like a Wi-Fi enabled app, and they're just sending me ads. Like when I open the app, they have ads for their products, and then I hop on Instagram and there's Edelkrone ads, and I'm like, fuck Edelkrone.
So
they make cool shit, but fuck them.
But a lot of that stuff is through Google ads and Amazon ads. The same happened with when I bought a rad power bike.
Yeah.
I had already bought the bike.
Yeah.
But after I bought it and
I
had gone to the website, now it's like every website I went to, it was nothing but rad power bikes, because they're paying to like through the Google ad service to put those in front of you.
For me, I have not bought anything Edelkrone, but I have the app on my phone, and now I get Edelkrone ads on my Instagram, and I wasn't before. So it's just kind of an annoying thing where all these companies kind of like selling each other data so that they can sell me something.
I got Astera ads.
Yeah.
And that shit is like, I feel like that's such a niche little market.
Because you put the app on your
Because
phone.
I put the app on my phone.
Yeah.
I've never Amazoned it. I think the only thing I Googled was like how to connect it.
And that app doesn't even like, with that app, it's not sharing your information. So you know who is? You're either the Apple Store or the Google Store.
Yeah.
They're telling you they downloaded this app.
Yeah.
Similarly, I got an ad on Instagram, and I was like really interested because it was advertising a space in Los Angeles where it's like you can rent out this space for $1,000 for music videos, and it's like, look at all these Astera bulbs that we have. Like that was one of the selling points, and I was
crazy.
Like, how did they even know all these things about me? But then I was like, oh, there's that Astera thing in there. So I think that they were going hand in hand. But in the comments of this, like someone gave the example that they have this guy's wife is a therapist, and her office, it's like a duplex where her office is next door to their home, and it has the Ring doorbell, so they could be seeing people going. Their home has the Ring doorbell, but that doorbell could see people going into the therapist, like facial recognition.
Yeah, that's like medical stuff.
Advertising them self-help books and stuff. So this is all very it's just annoying. I don't know that it's necessarily scary, except that apparently some law enforcement agencies, Ring has been selling info to them so that they can get that facial recognition of people that come to your door. So that's where it's like, oh well, this is actually some Big Brother shit.
I wonder when, to put any positive spin on this whatsoever.
I have. Okay.
Or just like from a standpoint of like you're struggling or whatnot. These companies are making billions of dollars.
Right.
And more money than any company should make when you think of someone like Amazon and Google.
Right.
And when you look at like the TVs we have upstairs, for instance, these TCL TVs that are like, all the cost of building that TV is subsidized in the fact that you're putting apps on the TV.
Yeah.
And those apps then can show you commercials when you turn on the TV through Roku, whatever. Boy, we should have invested in Roku stock a long time ago. Man, who would have known? Back then, they'd put on all these TVs. But the TVs are making more money now, and you can buy these TVs for super cheap. So that was an instance of like this kind of world benefiting you as a consumer.
Yeah.
I wonder at what point, should someone propose a bill or some sort of action where it's like each person has their digital fingerprint.
Yeah.
And that digital fingerprint, if you opt in to your likeness being served ads, you get a kickback. I mean, it's like when you create a YouTube channel, you're getting paid for the ads that you push onto others. What about you as a person who's getting constantly bombarded by these ads?
Yeah.
You know, if you agree to have your information handed off so they can learn all these things about you, per company that buys it, should you get like a couple pennies from that? And eventually you might actually be like, oh, I'm getting like a $50 a month check because I clicked yes on you can use my information.
I mean, that being said, it's really interesting. So when I was studying like marketing director stuff, when I used to do that, the mindset has changed. In the past, when Americans would turn on their television and there was an ad, people would watch the ad and they would kind of say to themselves subconsciously or consciously, I'm getting to watch this TV show for free. The cost is I have to watch ads. And sometimes this happens even on Twitch where people can watch an ad to earn bits to help support their favorite creators. We have access to so much free stuff through our phone now. And like so many like very skilled engineers have to make Instagram happen, you know, all these apps, and nobody is paying for it. You know, I have been using Facebook for free for over a decade now. It blows my mind. How did they pay for all those engineers and developers?
Your data.
Yeah, exactly, right? Because we, especially in America, will not pay for things on our phone because we're not a schmuck. It's interesting in other countries. Even China, for example, the consumer is more likely to pay for an app because they expect like, oh, I'm playing this game, I'm going to pay for credits to play the game.
Or if
that
I'm
kind
paying
of
for
thing.
something, I have a higher expectation of quality.
Right. So I think it's very interesting in, you know, we moved away from I have to watch an ad to watch this TV show that I like to stop sending me junk mail, stop sending me spam, to stop delivering me targeted ads.
Speaking of, I just got a targeted email from B&H Photo about the Fujifilm X105, the V, which just this morning I Googled to see when it was coming out, and I just got an email.
I'm like, I think things are changing.
And I'm looking at it because I really want to know.
I'm telling you, actionable, like, don't click on those ads. But if you don't click on them, they're going to find another way. Like, they're finding ways to just infiltrate our lives. I think it's changing in that I think the youngest generation that is consuming media right now don't like ads either.
Yeah.
I think the subscription model might be the way to go for a lot of people. Is like, I don't want to be messed with these ads. I don't mind a lot of Hulu is an example of something I can tolerate. Of like, I pay a little bit for Hulu, I get an ad like at the end of a show. That's something I can tolerate, but I hate watching cable where it's like every 3 minutes we're breaking for the advertisement.
Oh my God, watching CW superhero shows is a nightmare.
And I think if cable's going to survive, they got to address that. Like, I think that's a problem that a lot of people have, and I don't think it's doing well. I don't think cable's doing very well lately because it doesn't appeal to this younger generation that doesn't like some of these things.
That's a good camera. That one. It's a good camera.
Anyway, that's it. I'm just kind of tired of ads.
Yeah, I think it actually.
Please don't turn on your ad block for this video, though.
I do think it leans really well into Malika's
Yeah,
topic.
it does. Yeah, these kind of go hand in hand. I think the subscription model, I prefer it.
Sure.
I like to spend $3 a month to not have to listen to someone telling me some shit. Oh, let me go on one more little tiny rant of like the Super Bowl ads. I hate them. They come in and they're all like sentimental. Don't even know what they're advertising anymore. They're like, oh my God, we're such good companies. And Verizon Wireless is like, we're such a good company. Look at all these firefighters we've helped. And Verizon throttled California firefighters during the wildfires last year on their unlimited data plans. They throttled all that shit. And it was a huge controversy, and they had an ad in the Super Bowl talking about how good they are for firefighters. I was like, fuck off on your sentimental bullshit. You're just trying to act like you're a cool person and a good person. These companies are making billions of dollars. They're not people. They're awful.
That brings up another point, though, because you're talking about that spin. You're talking about that spin and how there was a lawsuit and there was a thing, but it didn't get too much public traction. Now they can completely reshape the narrative.
Yeah.
And people will have no idea about the other stuff.
Oh, they're such a great company.
When I think about all this stuff with the ads and all the things that scares me most, and we saw this in our 2016 election, is when this stuff's used for politics. We saw that there's companies like Cambridge Analytica that is using this data from Facebook and other companies to target exactly what message they want to a person to manipulate them into voting a certain direction.
Yeah.
And that shit terrifies me. It's when it starts getting used for politics that I'm like, oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
That's when it's like really, really frightening.
I'm sad. Anyway, continue. I'm just sad. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I mean, our last video was like, sad face Malika. Let's talk about loneliness.
But it's so true, though, because like I do have an ad blocker. I have it turned off for YouTube, though. Like I want to try to support as many creators as possible. To what extent that actually works, who knows? But even just like going on LA Times, I think it was LA Times. There was an article I really wanted to read that talked about some new movie or whatever. I literally clicked on the link, and because I had the ad blocker on, it would not let me read the article.
Yeah.
I didn't,
all the time.
didn't realize how many news websites block you or require you to have some sort of subscription.
Washington
to
Post,
even,
New York
Times.
Times, even the Kansas City Times, Kansas City Star back in Kansas City.
I had no clue.
Yep.
Because I don't always like visit those particular websites. Usually like Variety, THR, Deadline, The Wrap. For the most part, they're like free, but if you use an ad blocker, it's like, no, you got to either unblock it or use it.
That's tough because they have to make money somehow, and I get that. Like lots of times I'm okay with being like, okay, I'll turn off my ad blocker. I specifically don't like being sold. Like I don't like having it shoved down my throat by companies that are making billions. I don't like that. Anybody who can afford a Super Bowl ad, I probably don't support them.
Right.
I mean,
like, can you imagine if Disney Plus rolled out ads all the time on the platform, even though you paid for it? It's like,
I'd be upset.
This would be so irritating.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, to tie kind of your both points together, though, because I actually worked on a really cool project for the LA Times. Did you know that those boxes where they put the newspaper in, they sell an average of 1.25 copies per box?
Wow.
Yeah. So what's really sad is like trusted news sources. I know there's corruption in media. Okay. There always will be. But like kind of like, trusted news sources where people research their sources, like quality news that you can use to like find out about your community or like who you're going to vote for and stuff. They're struggling to survive.
Yeah.
And like free bad information is rampant.
Yeah.
It's horrible. So consider supporting your local newspaper or something. They're good people in general.
This new X100 looks really nice.
Oh my God, this guy.
it's a really, I have the X100S upstairs. It's a beautiful, wonderful camera.
I actually pay a New York Times subscription because I have the crossword puzzles app.
Oh, I switched over for the food.
Really?
Honestly, when
they do
Lucas
the meal
and
planning for
Lucas
you.
and I just went on a trip 2 weekends ago. The whole trip, I was playing Hearthstone and he was doing crossword puzzles.
Yeah, I mean, every plane ride, that's what I'm doing. Most of the time, when my Switch dies, I do crossword puzzles.
I'm also very guilty. I'm one of those people that if there's an app I want to try and I see that it has in-app purchases, I'm like, this is going to ask me for some subscription shit. I a lot of times will do the trial, whether it's 3 days, 7 days, or whatever it is. And then immediately once I enable the trial, I go to my iTunes profile and I disable it.
I know.
Yeah.
You gotta save your money.
And sometimes the apps are very good and I keep them, but for the majority of them, I'm like, you're not really doing enough for me to want to keep this if I can get it for free with like an Adobe Photoshop app that I already have free because I already have Adobe Creator Cloud or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So subscription model. The amount of money I have handed over to Adobe Creative Cloud.
Oh my God.
Over the last what?
Thousands.
7 years now? Yes,
thousands
it is thousands.
Of dollars,
but I'm almost excited when I do my taxes because I'm like, that's a real business expense.
Yeah.
I use this every day. All right. So what did I want to talk about? My background, besides art, I was also a marketing director. And I used to do a lot of social media stuff, still do for the company, and influencer relations, that kind of thing. Because I didn't get a degree in marketing, I was like, what's the difference between me and somebody with a marketing degree? I didn't read the books. So I read all the books and I took some classes and I did a lot of workshops and that kind of thing. And traditional marketing education was focused on how do you sell a product? For a long time, it was like, how do you sell coffee, this cup, a table, that kind of thing. And then, of course, there's always been services, like how do you sell this plumber service or internet service or something like that. But now we're in this new age where people aren't selling us a product or a service, they're selling us a subscription. And everything is moving towards a subscription. Even our software is like, it's hard to get a thing forever now. Unless you want to pay forever. And so there's some new kind of books and knowledge and education coming into like marketing programs on, okay, marketers, this is the new generation. How do you sell a subscription? And I have a book on my to-read list. I have yet to read it because I'm a CEO. And I can speed read, but then I don't absorb the information. But it's about how do you sell a subscription. And so the example that most people use is with Netflix. They have the data that shows when you watch X amount of episodes, you're likely to finish the whole series. And we have a little bit of that data, but we don't have enough. For example, on our Twitch live streams, on our tabletop RPGs, we notice we really have to capture people during the first 15 minutes. If we do not capture people for the first 15 minutes, they are likely to click away. But if they've consumed the first 15 minutes, they're likely to stay for the rest of the episode. And I would love to know more examples of how many episodes do you have to watch to be hooked to a series? How many months do you have to subscribe to our channel to feel like you're part of the family? And then also, not only knowing that number, but how can we kind of create a ramp towards that X factor?
Well,
right?
I think the biggest thing I've seen from our data is it's a overall reach of viewership and changes in platform behavior.
Yeah.
Things were a lot different 4 to 5 years ago on the platform, and this is different for YouTube and Twitch. Twitch is a paid subscription. YouTube has the ability, but for the most part, when you subscribe on YouTube, it's like
a free thing.
Yeah,
you're just getting email notifications basically.
And we're going to actually be a part of a beta program with Twitch in a couple weeks about some new features for their subscription models. But it's a paid subscription, but we see ridiculous retention for people who are part of the community, and we have one of the highest percentages of subs watching. But what that tells us is we have one of the lowest percentages of new people watching.
Right.
And a lot of that's the type of content that we put on Twitch is not discoverable. It's not viewed. We don't get rated much, things like that. So new people are not coming in. So it's like we have really good stats on retention, really bad stats on discoverability, which means finding out the research of exactly how and why with making a new sub is even really difficult for us because we don't have the ability as much.
Yeah, because you can't go in and search like Twin Peaks inspired RPG and then Kola comes up.
Right,
No,
right.
That's not how that works.
There's no search like that.
And that being said, the analytics with Twitch in particular make it very hard to kind of track, well, they watched X amount of minutes before they clicked the follow button. I know Twitch owns that data, and sometimes I can squeeze it out of them as an average for the platform, not necessarily us as an individual channel. And, the content we make is really unique. So I just want us to think about ways that we could measure those things and improve on those metrics.
One of the stats we were able to squeeze out of them that was not one that we enjoyed getting was we have on the platform one of the lowest follower notification audience bases. So one of the reasons,
mean by that?
One of the reasons not many people show up when we go live, despite us having over 100,000 followers on Twitch, is we have, in general, one of the lowest percentages of groups who have turned on notifications for when they go live. And some of that could be that people like came in for one show and don't unfollow, but don't want to get notified anymore because their show's not anymore. Because we do random
prize or
content.
something. Yeah.
A lot of it has to do with our audience base. That we don't have the typical Twitch user audience base. We have, for the most part, an older audience who is a little bit more tech savvy and refuses to be giving over their email. Because you have to get those notifications, you have to give Twitch your email, and then you have to go approve that email and be email verified to get your email notifications. And we have the lowest percentage of users who have done that. And I think a lot of it is because these people in our community are like, well, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to give Twitch my email authorization. I'm going to continue to be anonymous. So we end up in this position where we have a super low percentage of our email follower groups getting notifications compared to most.
I have been surprised by how many people have come up to me in real life, in person. I may be at a convention, I may be grocery shopping, to introduce themselves, shake our hands, say that they love our content. And I'm like, cool, what's your Twitch username? Because I might recognize you from the chat room. And they're like, oh, I don't watch with a account. They just put twitch.tv/
They just know at 4
hyper.
p.m. we're here.
Yeah.
One of the saddest stats in our Twitch dashboard, 98% of our viewership is direct. Think about that. 98% of our viewers type twitch.tv/ hyperrpg and go direct, which blows my fucking mind.
Yeah.
That is insane to me. We have made it our website. And they are going direct, which is like cool, but it also is like, well, why would we ever put resources into being discoverable on Twitch? We should just be only researching and putting resources into being discoverable on the outside and leading people to that Twitch page, because that's what they're doing already. They just go direct. They're not finding us on the follower page. They're not finding us through other streamers.
They
through
probably just like
videos.
bookmarked it and they're like, click,
go there.
Takes you there.
I like the show. I'll go direct.
And because we are very
terrifying.
consistent every single day with when we go live, they don't need a reminder. They already have it they know.
But it's terrifying. It means we have no one new is coming to our streams.
Yeah.
When I see that stat, all I know is like, oh, the only people watching are people who already know we exist. Shit.
Yeah.
But I do. I mean, we have lost subs over time.
Oh, yeah, lots.
That's a very natural behavior that you don't sign up for something forever. But I would love to know the lifetime of that and understand the behavior of why. Because people often do subscribe for a show they like and unsubscribe when the show ends, right?
Yep.
We saw that
A lot. Power Rangers.
Yeah, with the Power Rangers show, quite a bit. And I wonder if they're, of the people who stay, why? How can we find more people like that? The couple weeks ago, I asked in the chat room, how did you find us because of Power Rangers? And there was some of our most diehard, biggest, positive, active, supportive community members were like, "Oh, it was me," and I was like, "Oh, So some of them stayed, and those people were great, and then some of them haven't, and I missed their faces. Or
Do
their
you think
usernames.
it's also difficult because of how many new subscription/streaming services are coming out
with our audience base,
and they're
yes.
and they're now more affordable.
Right.
Yep.
That like even though we're not like Disney Plus and Twitch are two completely different things.
But we as a channel compete more with Disney Plus and Netflix than your average Twitch streamer.
right
Yeah.
because we're storytelling.
That's the type of content
Right.
we're making,
Yeah.
and that's more of our competition. Other Twitch streamers, we already know that we're not necessarily the market for the generic Twitch user.
Right.
So, yes.
Because we're not doing that stuff.
Disney
Yeah.
Plus and Netflix and Hulu, they are all of our competitors, and the more people sign up for those services, they're going to look at us and go, yeah, are we going to be able to give you as much for $5 a month as Disney Plus can? Fuck no.
We're gonna be able to give you Star Wars? Hell no.
No.
Yeah.
We
That's
can't
not a
compete
thing.
with that. What we
Yeah.
give you is community.
We
Yeah.
give you
We can
friends.
give you friends, friendship,
Friends is-
community.
Basically, what we're
resting
saying is we
place.
need to get some sort of like TTRPG or something from Hyper on Disney Plus, and we'll be okay.
I have
That'd be
ideas.
amazing.
It wouldn't be the first time somebody wanted to talk to us about putting our content, maybe a TTRPG,
I mean, when
on
is that?
another platform.
When is that moment gonna happen? When are we gonna open Netflix and see something like that?
I think it's going to happen very soon. It's not going to be us.
No, but I'm
we-
saying in general.
we
I
have-
hate that I
Pretty
know
soon.
more about this than I can say.
Tabletop role-playing games will be on streaming services soon, I'm very
Yeah,
sure.
I'm very sure of it as well, and unfortunately, we've been kept out of a lot of those conversations. But I hear about them because people want our advice on how to pitch it, and I'm like, well, no.
Well, no.
Let
how
me
about you
fucking
let
do
us
it.
do it? And
Yeah.
I mean, Harmon Quest was Harmon Town was a thing on CISO, I think. So this is sort of already happened, but that was its own breed of thing.
Yeah. No.
All right, moving on.
Zach's slowly dying inside because I know what he wants to say. Let's talk a little bit about numbers. So Google did a huge earnings call yesterday, and for the first time since 2006, since they enabled the ability to make money off of ads, and AdSense has been a thing, they finally released some numbers.
Oh, how
And
nice
they
of
told
them.
us.
In the last
Oh, well, thanks for that, Google.
in the last 3 years alone, they generated over $34 billion in revenue.
Oh, thanks, Google.
From
Thanks for letting
AdSense?
us know when it's an abstract number that's so fucking high, we have no comprehension of what that means.
So it's a combination of AdSense, the Google search engine, other types of ads, YouTube premium subscriptions, the subscription that they have to like their TV service. So it's a little bit of a combination of stuff. It's not just Google AdSense, but Google AdSense did make quite a bit of money as well. And so up until now, all the estimates have sort of been scattered about, but they said that YouTube earned $4.72 billion, nearly 1/3 of its 2019 revenue in just the fourth quarter alone. That figure is a 31% jump from what YouTube made in quarter 4 of 2018, and its ad revenue increased 36% from 2018 to 2019.
This scares and frustrates me so much because every person we know who has a YouTube channel, including our own, their ad revenue is dropping like hotcake, like dropping tremendously. But yet their ad revenue internally is going higher and higher.
The biggest thing today now is there are certain categories on YouTube that are exploding. Entertainment is not one of them.
Kids.
Kids is huge. Lifestyle, travel, how-tos, and educational, that shit is skyrocketing. So, like, your highest CPMs come from all of those categories, whereas entertainment has some of the lowest.
Wait. I got an idea.
I think you and I talked about this.
we need to have a channel. How to travel with kids. I saved her company.
Step 1, adopt some children.
Just kill me now.
Step 2, get
Uncle
smarter.
Lucas wants to go.
Step 3.
That's right. So also some other figures. How much AdSense YouTube reportedly pays out to its top creators, since they take about 45% and the creators take 55%. The 2019 top earning channels were Ryan's World with $26 million.
Wait, Ryan's World, the
kid who plays
The
with all
child?
the toys.
The toy,
Yes.
yeah.
Because think about it, kid demographic. We talked about it in like the first episode of the show, was how all the controversy with Copa.
Yeah.
So kids, obviously a huge target,
Yeah.
a huge demographic on the platform. 26 million in revenue. Dude Perfect, 20 million.
Fuck those guys.
Anastasia Radzinskaya, 18 million, who's also a child, like a kid on YouTube who makes videos about toys and stuff. Rhett and Link, 17.5 million.
They're doing good.
Which sort of like kind of goes into entertainment, but it also
Yeah.
has like educational and how-to elements to
Yeah.
it. And their company has acquired other channels as well. And Jeffree Star, $17 million. Makeup, exactly. That's a huge.
And constant controversy.
Oh, he's a dipshit. He's an extreme dipshit. No
Together,
offense.
the top
offense,
10
Jeffree
highest
Star. I
paid
know you're
channels
watching.
reportedly earned $145 million in 2019, 0.009 of YouTube's ad revenue for the year. And then the other revenue also includes like YouTube paid subscriptions.
If it's 0.0009 and 45% goes to the creators and 55% or goes to YouTube or whatever, like, why is everyone we know's ad revenue dropping?
I think it's because we're all playing in the same category of content. We're all playing in the entertainment field.
But this is even the people who make Minecraft videos for kids.
We don't fit the algorithm.
Those
Yes, the
Like I
algorithm.
said.
Ah, hell, the
all
algorithm.
hail the
All
algorithm.
hail the algorithm.
Algorithm.
How to travel with kids.
It's frustrating looking at the numbers, because you look at how many people in our field. I mean, I talk to so many other people on the platform who do a lot of the same stuff that we do, specifically trailer reactions, movie reviews. Yeah, that type of stuff, unless you're getting hundreds of thousands of views within 48 to 72 hours, your videos are not pulling in a lot of revenue.
No.
And like, we just did a trailer reaction for Fast 9, and it has over 145,000 views, but it's been demonetized because, we have music from the trailer that's by Charlie Puth. So all these record labels, they claim the trailer.
Oh, trailer reactions get demonetized all
Like
the fucking time.
crazy.
Yeah, especially it's become less and less the studios that demonetize them, and it's a lot of the companies who own the rights to the music in the trailer, because they're not always connected to the studio, and the studios make separate deals with those companies for licensing and all that sort of stuff. So for me, I get really frustrated sometimes when people either are demanding us to do certain types of content, or are upset with us when we don't do certain types of content, or they assume that because a view, even on our most popular trailer reactions, the Avengers ones, they have over 2 million views apiece. Over the course of the 2 years that they've been out, they've only made like $2,000.
Yeah,
which
and
sounds like
spread
a
that
lot.
out, when you
but
spread that out over 2 years, that is nothing.
that's nothing.
Our operational costs are so high. And I think people don't realize, especially those that watch on YouTube, why we do so much content for those RPGs. The RPGs fund a lot, but they don't make ad revenue. And if we ever want to play the ad revenue game, they won't work. They just won't. But they're a direct-to-consumer reactionary product that gets actual revenue from our audience and makes money. So as a company, we have to often make choices of like, oh, does this make money? It does. We do it. And then when it stops making money, we cut it because we have to pay people.
And I think they have a higher ratio of people subscribing to our channel because they saw that video, which is really interesting.
Oh, okay, wait. You just jumped shark for me. In relation to what?
You're talking about the value of our like tabletop RPG videos on our YouTube
Well,
channel?
I'm talking
Yeah.
about that we can't make money off ad revenue.
Well, that too.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, like the most interesting thing for me in the last, month, two months has been looking. I've actually been doing a lot of deep dives into a lot of the channels that I watch, and looking specifically how they categorize their videos. If all of them are in one category, if some are kind of tailored for specific categories, and then seeing how a lot of those videos are tagged and promoted. And the more of the how-to educational stuff that I see, it's tagged usually in either like lifestyle, people and travel, educational, a lot of film and animation, which between film and animation and entertainment, I haven't really been able to yet decipher the biggest difference between it. But most of the creators who lean into those different categories that are not just entertainment, they tend to be more successful. So it's like YouTube doesn't really provide you too much guided information as to like, these are the topics and the trends that are really popping off that you should focus on. And they kind of just let you explore the Wild West however you want. And I don't necessarily think that's the best way to build a community of creators or viewers, because everyone is just trying to like chase this imaginary number of ones and zeros. And it gets frustrating sometimes.
But I mean, that being said, if they offered guidance, maybe we wouldn't have as much innovation and surprise like hits, right?
Yeah.
So I have discovered this category of ASMR domestic housekeeping that I love, and there's a whole bunch
ASMR
of
is a huge industry on YouTube.
Well, like people I'm talking specifically the sound of a knife on a chopping board.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And that is a huge category, but I would like people wouldn't not. Like, how would you know that would have become a hit?
But you say a huge
right?
category. I bet that is a smaller revenue category than even entertainment.
No, it's bigger.
The stuff she's watching
ASMR.
from
Well,
it's not that kind of ASMR.
It's like that.
She's
channel.
calling it ASMR, but nobody else would qualify.
Are you talking
it as
about
ASMR.
like when people?
It's like the house cleaning videos. That
I see
watch.
what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's somebody like getting close-ups of them chopping a cucumber and folding laundry.
So it's not ASMR in the traditional sense.
No, it's not.
Yeah.
No, I call it like domestic.
Sure. Which, like, yeah, I have no idea how well that does or doesn't do.
Well, they're getting sponsored by Samsung, so it's like I see
it
the
must do
numbers.
decently.
But I think if YouTube did offer more guidance on like kids, how to beauty and lifestyle,
Would
or like
we
the
get
big,
just the same content?
Yeah,
But look,
we already do.
YouTube's going to be driving whatever gets the most ad revenue.
Yeah.
YouTube internally is going to force the algorithm towards ad revenue the same way fucking Facebook will. At the end of the day, they're making billions of dollars on ad revenue, so they're going to push certain things that look better for the advertisers that are giving them the money and that want that stuff. And if right now kids are the majority of the people that they can push this ad revenue on, then it's going to be kids. And it's going to like keep...
And then they'll all go to jail.
And it's like the algorithm will just keep changing. You know, it's like the whole fucking video that MatPat put out about how... On Game Theory about how just the algorithm changes are going to kill mature video games. Because YouTube, even as of last year, was still the #1 marketing tool for large AAA game companies to promote their games.
Yeah.
And when you have games like Mortal Kombat and Doom coming out that are like failing in sales comparatively to what they used to, and part of the reason is creators, who are their biggest commercial, that they put a certain amount of like bet on. Well, these creators are going to play our games and we'll wine and dine them, send them to our marketing event, blah, blah, blah. And then those creators are like, yeah, well, I'm not going to put that on my YouTube channel because it'll get demonetized. And I'm just going to keep playing Fortnite and Minecraft because that does better. You know, like these algorithms are going to fundamentally change industries.
Yeah.
Because there's like a whole circle of how content is created, and what is to Google of just like flipping a switch internally to make more money in this category changes an entire industry of how things will be created, sold, all that stuff, you know?
Yeah, and I'm really interested to see how creators decide to embrace changes like that, and whether or not they do shift like what they're doing and how they're doing it. Mr. Beast is someone who I think is a perfect example, because for years and years and years he tried doing multiple things, and he was constantly changing his tactic and changing what he was doing and trying to always adapt to whatever sort of like the trending thing was at the time, and then finally something hit. But it's like, how many times do you have to do that before we start getting into the territory like we talked about in one of the previous episodes of like burnout and just then like...
But also like how privileged do you have to be able to even do that?
Yeah.
To be able to constantly change and pivot is from a place of privilege, for sure. You get locked in from a financial standpoint, and you have to be pretty privileged to be able to do that.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah. YouTube is an interesting beast. I do enjoy researching and figuring out and looking at things and how things are changing and evolving and trying to slowly like skew some of the stuff that we do. Like I've been implementing, and I don't know if this is why the Fast 9 trailer got so many hits in such a short amount of time, but I've been implementing a lot of the tactics that I've been researching, and the fact that trailer got so many hits so quickly, I'm like, maybe this really does work. And it was as simple as searching Fast 9 in the search bar and using the top 10 things that popped up on the list and putting them into the tags field.
Yeah.
And like, maybe that worked. Maybe it shows up on the top. I don't know. I have to look at the analytics and do a little bit more
until
of a
they
deep
get
dive.
savvy on that, and then that trick won't work anymore, right?
Yeah. Like, what point are they going to go the Facebook route where it's like, oh, you're trying to do this? No. So we'll see.
You're not for kids.
Before we go, let's answer. We already answered Wes's question, tying into the other articles that we talked about. But we have another question from Calvin Hunt, who's asking, if price and space were no object, what piece of tech would you want for the studio?
I want a giant white cyc. If you're saying space isn't a problem, I would love to have a giant green screen or white cyc for us to play with. That'd be fun. Just to take quick photos, quick shots that we can do what we need to with.
Yeah.
I miss that.
I'm waiting for someone to invent a thing where you can like push a button and it goes from blue, green to white, and it's just like a wall.
Oh, that's already invented.
Is it?
Oh yeah, VFX House has been using that for a little bit. Entire walls.
Well, you're talking about like an LED screen.
Yeah, an LED wall.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Cool.
I mean, we used a giant TV as our background for a while.
That's true. Yeah.
Looks good.
Can we just Unreal Engine all of our RPGs?
Why Unreal Engine?
That's what they use.
For the commercials and stuff on those walls.
Yeah. So that's what you would want, huh?
I just want like space.
Sorry.
Space, because right now, we have enough space to do
like
work, but yet we're locked in. It's like we do modularly kind of move a little bit around in here, but we're pretty locked in. Changing this set is very difficult.
There really is there isn't a singular piece of tech that I would want, but I think like more space would definitely be great. So you could, if you wanted to, you could have one set for a certain type of show, another set for a certain type of show, and if there's a way to sort of like block it off so you could shoot two things simultaneously and not have to worry about sound bleeding across, that would be really, really cool.
Yeah.
Which we kind of had that at GNS.
Kind of.
But
we also had to like stop recording all the time because Nerdist would be right next to us for like 3 hours out of the day, and
like you would literally look across and they were right there.
There was literally a time frame where, actually, was that the whole time you were there too, Lucas? Like still going, where it was like every day we'd be setting up, walking on eggshells, moving around the set, trying really hard not to make a single sound because they shot Nerdist News
and
every day.
That sound stage was pretty damn big.
Yeah.
But the fact that they literally built it right in front of you must have been like the most like.
To be fair, they were there first.
Sure.
I built in front of them.
I get it.
Why'd you do that?
That's where I was told to build it. But they were there first, so they were probably more frustrated
that you showed
than
up.
we were.
Yeah.
I want PTZ camera heads that we could control from the board, or that as well as pan tilt camera heads and then zoom on the lenses that you could control from the board. That is a thing that Blackmagic can support, but we don't have that kind of. It's very expensive.
What do you mean? We already have that.
I'm talking pan tilt tripod heads.
The heads. You're not talking about the PTZ cameras.
Yeah, and then zoom on the camera that you can control. So it's basically I don't ever have to get up to just like adjust the camera, because lots of what you don't see a lot of shows is we're running back and forth behind the set to go move a camera because we don't have enough for everybody.
Zach and I literally have to coordinate. Okay, we're gonna do journal entries. You're gonna start here, then go here. While that person's talking, adjust that
people
camera.
wonder why we do the journal entries the way that we do. It's because we have to balance when the cameras get moved.
And you can set presets on that shit of like, okay, here's my 1, here's my 2. Just press the number 2 in it. Whoop.
Because we have four cameras. We have 2 that are wide shots on all the players, and then we have 1 camera that's a close up on each individual person. So we have to move them around.
Technically, we could do that with these.
Yeah,
the issue you have that those cameras just look like shit.
Yeah. If that were not a thing, I would love like one of those automated crane jibs. Those electric things. Those are so
the
cool.
one that Edelkrone's like been shoving that ad in your face. I would never buy that in an instant. Now,
not after this app bullshit.
No, fuck no.
But it looks pretty cool.
They show me the video. I'm like, cool, you got it to work once.
Yeah.
I think I would love for us to grow to a place where it would make sense for us to have a professional space, where like the cabling is done right. And like,
what are you trying to say?
Now I just feel like I'm being critiqued.
Ouch.
Ow.
Look, Warhammer is the most fucking wired show I've ever seen in my life. I hate it with a burning passion.
I mean, your
'cause
friend.
we all trip over cables.
Well, your friend is like a firefighter, and he's like scared for us. You know?
Oh yeah,
like,
yeah. One of my best friends is a firefighter. When we lived at the old house, he came in one day and he was like, "Man, I gotta pretend like I don't see anything in here."
But if we had more space, like we, we're friends with a lot of like stunt people and stuff, and like, oh, how could we do like an interactive choose your own,
sure.
with like stunt actors and stuff.
Dude.
We don't have
So
that kind
fun.
of space. We have to use these headsets because the soundproofing isn't really good in this either,
No.
and you can hear when the neighbor's having a Porsche dropped off,
Yeah.
which was totally something that happened. And if it,
Yeah, it did.
but if those things are kind of like secure, like you said, no time or money or space or whatever, if that wasn't an issue, I personally would love to have like a professional quality drone for that kind of photography.
That is drones at this point at the quality
So
we
good.
need
Yeah.
are cheaper
No,
than
but I mean like the
half-
nice ones.
I'm not kidding. Most of the stuff that we have to get for production here and jobs that we've had recently are twice as much as one of those really nice drones you're talking about. It's just not something I've ever seen the need of us having because why would we have it?
Yeah, but we walked with elephants. Why don't we have a drone covering?
You think I want to fucking fly to Thailand and be carrying around a goddamn drone with me all day?
The
Zach, how are the
is-
elephants?
The Mavic is just in a small little
Yeah.
case.
Yeah.
You get one of the DJI Mavics.
Shit, get out of here, man.
I mean, they're like little drones. I know Amir had one, but we never.
Yeah,
got
that's the
really-
I think it would be
Yeah.
really interesting to like if we ever built out a show that would require those types of that type of photography to use a drone would be interesting. Like, can you send signals from those things? Like,
Yes.
would that even really are these
Yeah.
good or
I
is
mean,
it?
you
Yes.
can't get it too high, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
you can.
you can. And it's the biggest issue is that we live in LA.
Yeah.
And there are so many
You gotta get a
regulations.
permit, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know,
A
rightfully
permit, a pilot,
so.
a this and a that.
Yeah, you have to be permitted to fly them in LA now. So it's
In a
a
lot
big
of cities.
it's a big ask.
Yeah.
You know, like that's like one of those things that
Yeah,
I'm like whatever.
If restrictions weren't an issue.
I'm more interested in
Yeah.
the fact that Markiplier said he'd sell us his Red Rock director slider.
Mm. Yeah, those are
And-
nice.
Yeah, that's what. But I'm trying to justify that cost right now. He's willing to sell it to us, and I'm like, "Oh, okay.
They make good stuff.
I'm so over the Edelkrone right now.
Which is such a bummer because
You've noticed we're not using it right now.
I know it's a cool piece of. Well, we always
I'll
talk
use it for the live stream, but I'm not going to use it on this.
We always talk about how like we don't use the tech the way it's supposed to be used. We have to use
Yeah,
it
it
the way
goes
we
nonstop.
need it to use.
Yeah.
So it's like it goes back and forth for 3 hours, whereas some people will use it for literally two
One
shots.
shot, yeah,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
they're done. And it works great for that. But
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
okay, it works adequate for that. The app still fucking disconnects constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I want to throw it out a window.
I don't even have it down on my phone because it doesn't work. I can't connect to it.
Yeah. Dude,
Crazy.
the most recent like bug report I found on it, it was like turn off Bluetooth, uninstall app, reinstall app, turn back on Bluetooth, update firmware of device.
If I were on like a gig and someone brought one of these and they were like, "Oh, I need to reconnect to the app real quick," I'd be like, "Get a different get
Yeah,
a
get
different
something else.
slider.
Get something
This
else.
is
Get something
stupid.
else. Yeah.
Get a different slider, idiot."
Oof.
we are not going to be reaching out to Edelkrone for sponsorship anytime
Yeah, clearly
soon.
not. Clearly
They'll
not.
find
Not
these
anymore.
videos.
Yeah, not anymore. But guys, thank you so much for.
Wait. Goals.
Oh,
All right.
you got
Oh.
something?
Yeah, sure. This is a personal goal that I've
Yeah.
been working on.
What was our goal
I'm
last week?
trying to.
We didn't have one.
We didn't have one, and then I got like stressed out about like I'm not working towards the goal because I don't remember it. This is my personal goal. I've been trying to fight my phone addiction, and so if I have the urge to pick up my phone and look at it, open up Facebook. I'd actually deleted Facebook,
Good.
and I said instead of looking at my phone, I open up my journal.
Lucas says good. He communicates with our show groups the least of any person on all of our shows, and there'll often be questions in there and like, hey, did you guys get this email? Did you do this or that? And Lucas will be like, I didn't see it.
Like we need our phones for work, and because I run social
You gonna take
media.
that?
Yeah, I'll take it. I'm not good at seeing Facebook messages.
But I feel that I do find like I have this like reaction that I need to stay informed, and then I'll look through my notifications, and then I'll I'll just like scroll the news feed of
Yeah.
many platforms, Twitter, Facebook, and that kind of thing.
I mean, mine just won't stop.
Right.
It's nonstop.
Right, and then I got a notification from my phone that my time on my phone has increased by an average of an hour per day, which is a lot. So last week I spent a lot of extra time on my phone, and I think it's because of stress. And I think my stress reaction is to divert from what I'm stressed out from to mind-numbing scrolling the newsfeed. And I feel like I'm not the only one. I think this is a new problem we have, in our society.
I'll literally be editing something, and I'll be so deep into it, and I'm just like, okay, oh my God, I need 5 minutes. And instead of opening up a tab on my computer or, I don't know, doing something else I'll take out my phone.
Yeah.
It's like, I have a computer in front of me. Why am I going to my phone to do it?
So maybe the goal this week is to try to optimize your notifications and your work environment to be as kind of distracting as possible. Because Zach gets a notification for everything in Slack, and that's why he doesn't use it. And if you just turn it on,
tailor it to me.
Yeah, if you tailored it to you and the channels that you shouldn't be getting those Warhammer things because you're not working on that production. So
that's the one I get the most updates on. That room is active,
which is good for them because they need to be.
I think it's an easy goal. I think you'll feel really good once it's done.
Yeah.
And then I'll see you again next week, and we'll check in about it.
Okay.
The thing that I use that seems to help a lot is, especially early in the morning, I will put on Do Not Disturb mode, and I will put the phone face down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's out of sight,
I use my mornings to catch up on all that stuff. I use every morning to catch up on all
I'll
of
use my computer if I can. If it's Twitter, Facebook, emails, I will strictly do it on the computer and then get whatever I need to get done, and then I'll go to the phone as a last resort.
Everybody has their own system, but just revisit your notification fatigue.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, absolutely. So
I can do that.
That's your challenge for the week.
Lucas is like, yeah, challenge accepted.
He's like, off.
And then by Friday, you're going to be like, Lucas, answer your shit. Oh, you know the challenge this week.
My phone, I left it at home.
I just shut my phone off, you know what I mean?
Well, I think it's a balance of turning off maybe some notifications that are unnecessary.
She's going to regret this challenge.
And then scheduling time every morning at 9 is when I go through my emails.
Yeah. Agreed. So that's your challenge for the week. Until next week, good luck.
Bye.
Bye.